welcome to That Business Show 2.0 with your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business. Today we'll be talking with fellow podcaster Kevin von Eekeren. He is the creator of the new State of Logic podcast. Learn more about this throughout the discussion at the website, thestateoflogic.com. So Kevin, welcome to the program today.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You know, I love the name of the program because I myself am a very logical thinker. I talk about that a lot, how people need to remove the emotions from some of the decisions and some of the comments that people make. But first off, tell us a little bit more about the mission and the vision of the State of Logic.
Absolutely. So I just have kept seeing a more extremist point of view on either side of many topics, whether that be politics, religion, whatever. And we need to find a way to come to a middle ground. And the best way to do that is have empathy for one another, but also use logic to drive that decision-making concept. And by being able to put yourself in others' shoes and also apply logic instead of emotion, like you just said, you're going to come to a much more informed and moderate conclusion. And I think that's the betterment. That's for the betterment of the world.
You know, I talk about this a lot because I'm somebody who likes to kind of theorize and philosophize, and I talk about decision making and how there's three components to a decision. One is logic, one is emotion, and one is faith, a small component of some decisions. And the more logic that you put into a decision oftentimes results in the better outcome. So when people are making quick reactions, I tell them to stop and think. How much emotional decision is that, or versus how much is a logical component of that decision? How would you respond to that?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing a larger percentage of people go down the road of emotion. And that is leading to extremism on both sides. So how can you really, I don't think it's possible to eliminate emotion completely. Like you said, it is part of the decision-making process. I think by having a self-aware point of view, where you understand how your emotions are going to affect your decision-making capacity, that is when we really find a happy medium where everyone can come to some kind of informed conclusion that most people can agree with. Now, and really that's the ultimate solution.
Now, what inspired the podcast? I know you come from a background, you were a logistics officer with a SWAT team, you're an investor in startup companies. Why podcasting now?
Yeah, I think it's because when I was on the SWAT team, I had a really interesting experience. I had a German Shepherd at the time, and we got called out to a barricaded gunman. That is a armed suspect alone in a house. And we get there, do our thing. About an hour in, I let the dog out, let her go to the bathroom, put her back in the car. I don't think anything of it at the time. 6 hours later, I'm back at the house, flip on the news for the night, and I see a video of me taking the dog out of the car in a SWAT uniform, even though I'm a civilian, and the reporter voiceovering, saying, there's a hostage situation, there's explosives, and they're bringing a bomb dog in. And one, that's logistic or tactically wrong. We would never use a bomb dog in that scenario. But two, it just didn't happen. And so I called the producer of the night news. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you have to do something about this. You didn't tell the truth. And he literally laughed and hung up.
What?
And that's when I realized, okay, the media isn't interested in telling us the truth. They're interested in getting ratings. And so I started looking for different ways to gain an insight into people's point of view and kind of the zeitgeist of the nation instead of what the media is trying to tell us. And that's when I realized I really need to do my research to have an informed opinion. And it took me years to be able to do enough research and inform myself enough to be able to defend my points of view. And now that I can, I feel it's important I bring that concept to others.
You know, podcasting is the thorn in the side of traditional media. It gives a voice to the average individual. Many of average individuals are pulling tons of downloads, tons of viewership, and it's really starting to impact traditional media. So it's definitely, you know, a forum that, you know, more and more people need to take notice of.
I totally agree.
So you were a logistics officer with a SWAT team, and then you moved into the investing world. Talk to us about how you plan to develop your podcast. Is it going to supplement the investing business in some way, or is it strictly going to stand alone as a project of yours?
You know, it's very much a separate project. We certainly talk to entrepreneurs. I think it's important people understand the concept of how to start a business, but it's also important we talk about all those other topics that people find very interesting, whether that be religion, history, politics, whatever it is. So, often people refer to my podcast as a long rambling conversation of 20 different interesting topics, and I think that's a very fair representation. But I don't know how I could really integrate that into my investing work. I just do it because I really enjoy it.
I do too. I'm a real estate agent in my primary career. I actually started doing a radio show. I was on traditional AM radio before moving into the online realm just several months ago. But I too, just wanted to get out there. I wanted to interact with people. I wanted to provide a forum for more and more professionals to talk to the community, because traditional media isn't interested in feel good stuff. I mean, or logical based stuff. They're interested in driving ratings, which you demonstrated earlier there with that story. That's hard to believe that somebody would just hang up on you and laugh. Was there no recourse to that situation? You just whatever and just left it at that?
Well, I think more and more we're seeing. I came from not just training SWAT teams, but I spent 10,000 hours riding with the police all over the country because of my company. And I am seeing more and more officers being fired for things that aren't technically illegal or even immoral, just because they look bad and the media gets a hold of them. And that's where we really have to take into consideration, are they breaking the law? Did they do something immoral? And if so, they absolutely should be fined, fired, whatever it is, right? But also, we shouldn't be having a bias to say all cops are bad. And it's this very hard line to walk.
Now, talk to us about your show. Did you model your show after somebody specific or a certain model? Is it an interview format with one guest or multiple guests? What's the format?
So typically, it's much more of a conversation. I'm a huge fan of the Joe Rogan Experience. And so that really kind of opened my mind to different philosophies and points of view. And I really value that. But the one thing that he really doesn't talk about is business. And so I wanted to bring business into it a little bit. And I also wanted to have unique conversations with up to 3 other people where I could ultimately expand my mind and change my point of view. And I've been lucky enough to do that because I've had some brilliant guests on.
Now, you've invested in a number of startups, and so you've seen a variety of different behaviors. To what degree do people introduce too much emotion into the business decision making?
Oh, I have a great example of this. So I call it the ugly baby syndrome. So we've all seen it. You hop on Facebook and a friend of a friend has just had a baby and they post the newborn picture and you're not entirely sure whether it's a baby or a new alien race that someone has discovered. And no one is going to tell them that that's an ugly baby. And no one should. I don't see any value in that. But I think very much in the same way, businesses are babies. We create them out of nowhere. We put a ton of time and effort into trying to make them successful. The thing is, babies can be born with higher or lower IQ, different abilities, right? And same with businesses. If in 2017 you try and start a newspaper that is like a hard, like paper newspaper, it's not going to work. And so often people's friends and family are not going to tell them this is a bad idea. And that's where emotion comes in. They have their own bias about this thing that they've created, and they don't see that it's just not going to work. And unfortunately, it usually comes to investors like me to be kind, but also say, this is a lower probability of working than is worth my money and my time. And I want to let you know that in the kindest way possible.
Is a component of your show then going to be talking to entry-level entrepreneurs and professionals about their idea and then kind of guiding them and talking to them from an honest standpoint? I know I interview people, but I give them a forum to just talk about what it is that they're doing. I'm not a critical show.
Yeah, I'm when we talk about a business, it's very difficult to criticize someone in a public manner, and I don't think I do that. More so, I tend to have meetings, and when I find really intelligent, bright, even though they may not have reached their full potential yet because they may be young and still working on these things, I have them on because they have really unique and interesting points of view. So more so, I find the people that are really amazing and then talk to them about their ideas in hopes of changing other people's minds.
Where are you coming up with the topics for your show? And you said an hour and a half. That's a very bold podcast. I mean, most people do 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, an hour and a half, that's a lengthy podcast. So where are you finding the content to fill that time?
I'm going to be honest. It starts with, who are you? Tell us a story. And then it just turns into a phenomenal conversation. And we set a record recently during a 2-hour and 20-minute podcast where we talked about 37 different topics, including the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Well, I mean, I love talking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and everything, but how do you relate that to business, or is it not necessarily business centric?
It constantly changes depending on the person I'm talking to. So I'll talk to comedians, for example, we'll never bring up business. And then I'll talk to politicians or professors who are not interested in business either. But I would say about 50% of the time, business comes into the realm. I'd say about 80% of the time, politics comes into the realm, especially with Trump in office. It's a hot button topic. But you never know where it's going to go, and I think that's the beauty of it.
You know, Trump has done a favor for a lot of comedians and a lot of commentators. He gives them an endless supply of material, whether you like him or you don't like him. If nothing else, he gives you an endless supply of talking points. That's for sure.
That is exactly right.
Let me take a break here. Currently talking to Kevin Van Eekeren. He is an entrepreneur and creator of the podcast, The State of Logic, and you can learn more about the program at thestateoflogic.com. So we got a lot more to cover with him. When we come back from the break, talk about some of the other topics he covers on the show and how you too can also get on his program. If you'd like to come on our program, go to tbsinterview.com for more information. We'll be back in a moment. We're back to That Business Show 2.0, where business becomes show business. Today we're talking about podcasting with Kevin Van Eekeren, entrepreneur and creator of the State of Logic podcast. Learn more at thestateoflogic.com. So Kevin, what's the show schedule? I mean, as a podcaster, a lot of people just kind of keep a disjointed schedule. I mean, do you have it on a regular basis right now? What's going on with it?
Yeah, I mean, no matter what, we release a show every Tuesday. We certainly try and release more content than just once a week. And we're actually looking to develop and bring in really intelligent people to do shorter segments as well, integrated into the long form, so that we can also provide their kind of unique point of view and expertise in particularly the business and kind of, I don't want to call it self-help, but just generally building someone's information base so they can make their life better.
So how does one get on your program, and what type of a guest are you looking for? I guess you're just looking for a great conversation. So whether it's business or not, am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really intelligent, articulate, and willing to defend a point, whatever that point is.
And when you got those guests that say, I'm just leaving it to you and just let's talk about whatever you want, what direction do you like to take it?
It always inevitably goes to either politics or religion.
You know, I always stay off those topics on the program. I've done a few like that, but those are those hot button topics that really drive the listenership, though.
It does. I think it's also important that people are willing to talk about it and not have fear, because I'm a libertarian, so I'm not a conservative, I'm not a liberal, but some of my points of view can be taken as conservative, and we have a very kind of a strong culture of criticizing those who are conservative. And so I've had to kind of really make sure that I've thought through all my points and understand what I'm saying and how I'm saying it to ensure that I'm giving the correct point of view so as not to sabotage myself.
Right, and that is a logical thinker. I myself, have my own viewpoints on politics and on religion, but I'm very slow to respond to something because I want it to be logical. I want to make sure it makes sense. I don't want to make sure it's not, open to obvious attacks. And I really that's why I don't do a lot of posting on Facebook about it, because it leaves you open to so many attacks. But if people would just take the time to think things through and act logically as opposed to emotionally, I have no problem with people that have differing opinions than me. It's just how you demonstrate or how you tell or respond to people that I have problems with.
I totally agree. I think we need to be more open-minded, but also I think you hit a really good point in the sense that it is great to hear someone else's point of view, and we should be welcoming that more.
I do, and I often like to hear other people's points of view because then I look at it logically, and I'm trying to find out where they're coming from, and I try to understand it by asking questions, but never do I, go over into the zone of insult just because you don't believe as I do or you think differently than I do. I have a hard time understanding people that don't accept people that are different than him. I really just don't. To me, if you don't like somebody, you don't have to like them. I'm not going to tell you have to like them. Just leave them alone. Let them do their own thing. I just don't understand that. That's the logical side of me. How do you
I
respond?
completely agree. Racism, sexism, bigotry, homophobia, it's all very illogical.
It is. It is. And to me, I always tell people, I don't care if you like them or not, but why do you waste your time and energy messing with them? If you just leave them alone, I mean, there's people out there that want drama, and you're feeding what they want. The greatest response is to ignore them.
I think you have a great point, but I also think that people these days are so outraged, and they are outraged because of other things in their life, whatever that may be. And so instead of thinking about it logically or taking a deep dive on themselves and understanding where that pain and that anger is coming from, instead they drive that toward a political view or whatever it is, but they can't back that up with fact.
No,
And I think when we bring fact into the arena of politics, which is very hard to find, by the way, we really start to make some sense of things.
And the 24-hour news networks have really made us a divisive country. And I talk about this on the program a lot. You got, the networks on the left and the networks on the right. And it's forced many, or not forced, but it's made many people take sides. It's like we're on a sports team. You're going to root for your team no matter how well they're doing or how bad they're going to do. And that's what 24-hour news has done to us. Before 24-hour news, you had the 6 or the 6:30 evening news, and you got true, logical, need to know information. Now you're getting rhetoric and opinion and emotion, and it's really starting to clog the fabric of our society.
I totally agree. There's this thing called information theory, and it basically states that up until about 10 years ago, we were on the upward swing of a bell curve, where the more information we gathered, the better decisions we could make. And then once we went over that hump of the bell curve, now there's so much information we can't discern what is true and what is false. And that inherently leads to a more divisive country, a more extremist country. And I don't think that's healthy for anyone.
No, it's not, and it's a sad state of affairs where we see our country going. I honestly believe, if things don't change within the next several years, we're headed towards civil war. We're headed towards division in this country, and people really need to stop and think about, who we are, what we stand for, and what we could eventually lead to if we don't start maturing and acting more, respectfully of one another.
I think the biggest thing we can do to avoid that is to remove the incumbency, the career politician from the arena. And to be clear, I'm not a fan of Trump, but it's unique in the sense that at least he hasn't had to constantly change his point of view or agree with others to get the sponsorship so he can move up to the next level to eventually reach president. And hopefully we can just see more politicians coming in, doing their 4, 6, 8-year term and then leaving.
I think the rise of Trump really shows the problem in our society, because the average person is not going to enter the field of politics because they cannot take that type of beating. And somebody that can is somebody that has that sociopathic personality that doesn't really care what anybody else thinks. Those are the people that ascend to power, like Donald Trump and these career politicians. The average good old person is not going to take that type of a beating. So that's why we as a public need to be more, cohesive with what we talk about and the way we respond to people, and not be so insulting, because it's really keeping good people out of politics.
I think you're 100% right. Donald Trump, I absolutely believe is a psychopath, and it makes sense. I mean, really, if you're going after a power move, a power grab, you have to be able to do anything to do that, and he has done that. And he has been, I think, he really never meant to become president. He was doing this as a brand move, and then he said, "Oh wait, I may be able to win," and just kept going from there.
Yeah, but it just proves my point that you've got to have very thick skin, and the very thick-skinned people are somebody who ultimately really only care about themselves. And the average people who really do care about other people can't really take those insults and the beating that they get from people in the media. And it's just keeping so many good people out of politics.
I think you're right. A great example of that is John McCain. John McCain, when he was running against Obama, had some phenomenally positive things to say about Obama. There's examples on YouTube of people saying, "Oh, I think Obama's a Muslim," and he would take the mic back and say, first of all, it doesn't matter whether he's a Muslim or not. Second of all, he's a very good person, a family man. I believe in a lot of the things he says, but I think I can do better." And that's the kind of politician I would vote for and I would like. but we're just not seeing that these days.
That's all circles back around to being logical and not emotional, which is you've kind of been the crux of this entire discussion and the crux of what you're doing on your program. Again, the State of Logic, the new program here at learn more at thestateoflogic.com. So where are you looking to take the program and do with it? Do you have a vision in mind with what you want to do?
I really think that I need to find access to even more brilliant people. I was fortunate enough to have the head of entrepreneurship from Case Western on the program. He's a close friend, and that conversation really led to a lot of people contacting me saying, "I'm so glad I heard about this. I'm so glad that not all colleges are neo-Marxist breeding grounds, and that I can send my kids to someplace like there, and I know that they're going to be able to come to their own informed conclusions." And when I got all those emails, I realized that there's power in what I'm doing. I just need to be able to find more of those really brilliant, articulate, intelligent people with whatever point of view they have, so that we can express those points of view openly.
Were you surprised that people are listening and interacting with you when you begin to do this? I know a lot of people think, nobody's listening to you. Why would I want to do that? Was it surprising to see the engagement that you get?
It really was. I was blown away by it. I was so excited, but I think there was also this sense of huge responsibility. I need to work even harder to make sure that I'm not saying or doing anything that would be harmful. And that just meant that I had to work harder, and I'm more than happy to do that.
Today, though, you still spend time investing in startups. Is that still
Absolutely.
The core business and everything? How's that business going for you? We'll close with that and just what you're doing with Fulcrum Investing.
Yeah, Fulcrum Investing is a really interesting concept because it's a family office. So we don't have other investors determining, where we put our money and that kind of thing, which is really important. And then we use a non-biased approach to make a decision. And by doing that, we've found great success. And I've been able to work with some phenomenal entrepreneurs, which is so exciting.
What are people out there starting businesses in that you're in that are attracting investors money? I mean, there's a lot of people starting out service businesses, but that's difficult to get investors behind. Is it all technology still out there that investors want?
I cannot think of one investment I have that does not involve at least some technology. So certainly that's a driver. I think the other driver is it has to be able to be a $1 billion company. If it can't be a $1 billion company, it's not worth putting money into, unfortunately.
A good tip right there for all the entrepreneurs out there. That's a common question I get and I talk about in this program is how to get investment behind your product or your service. But it's something that takes a unique formula to find those investors. So, Kevin, real quick again, your program, The State of Logic. Give us one last push and plug for it.
Please go to thestateoflogic.com and give us a great ratings on iTunes. Thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoyed listening to the podcast, and I really appreciate the kind of logical point of view you bring to the world.
All right, I appreciate it. Kevin Van Eekeren, entrepreneur and creator of the State of Logic podcast. Thank you so much for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Again, thestateoflogic.com. New episodes air each weekday morning, 9 a.m. on thatbusinessnetwork.com, and then made available on demand on iTunes and on YouTube. If you'd like to share your story with us, tbsinterview.com for more information. You've been listening to That Business Show 2.0. I'm your host, Jamie Maloney, where business becomes show business.